Hello everybody, my name is Eric Terramullins, and today we're going to be checking out QuesQ's Fate Grand Orders Scathach. She's a 1-on-7 figure, and I know based off of my just saying her name right now, you're probably scratching your head like, what? I have butchered a couple names during these reviews, one in particular. I never played the game, how was I supposed to know her name was Jacketie? Regardless of this, I have to do my heritage proud, and if I mess up an Irish girl's name, I will never hear the end of it. So her name may be spelt like Scathach, but it's pronounced Scathach. Looking at this figure straight on, she is absolutely gorgeous, however, she has so many issues, but let's get to that at the end of the review. Starting off with this boring black circular base, haha, not as boring as you might think. They actually put her summoning circle there. This is so cool. Way to go, QuesQ. You definitely turned this trash into gold. Maybe not gold, but I still really enjoy it. The base is a rather thin plastic, but it's not too flimsy. This beautiful printing that's on here is done in a nice metallic, where we have this thick, transparent chunk of quite malleable plastic that's glued into this base, where we then have a metal peg that goes up into her leg. This peg doesn't go up particularly high into the leg, and it doesn't go very deep into this malleable plastic. You most certainly may have noticed that I built myself a Lego peg over here, holding her in place. But we're going to get into that at the end of the review. Her boots are relatively large. They look like she could crush some skulls. It's pretty hardcore. It's done in a dark bolter gun metal gray, and the sculpt work on them is just fantastic. I love the different sectioned pieces of plastic here. It just feels like armor scaling on top of armor. We have some armored feeling treads here that just really look good. Her lovely thigh highs have these really well done, wiry looking designs going all across the front and sides, with these little metallic circular buttons seeming to hold everything together. The level of shading that we get on this is phenomenal, and does a great job at sectioning off all the matte that we have on this figure. The back of her leg is carved in nicely behind the knee, where we have beautiful shading and this lovely indented line going down the back. Around the edge of the thigh high, we have a lovely little Celtic design, which really pops well with how reflective this silver is, next to all the matte surrounding it. She's wearing a bodysuit underneath her body-suited armor? Bodysuit on top of bodysuit. Instead of showing skin here, we now have a lighter purple going across her body. It covers most of it, her thighs going up into her behind, which are incredibly well sculpted, leading into this bathing suit that's a darker purple to go with her thigh highs. There's a lot of shading and highlights going across all of this, and you can definitely see it when we get into her stomach, which has the suit extremely glued onto it as we see her belly button and the lovely shapes and curves that you would get from her fit body. She has this Jacketie dress doohickey design thing going on here. At the top of her body, it's quite glued on and form-fitting, especially as we get down to where it flays out. You can see tons of holes and stretches in the fabric, and dynamic to go with the rest of her pose that we have going on here. This dress adventure has all sorts of shading and highlights going across it to really accentuate its curves. Despite it all being matte on top of matte, this figure does quite a good job at sectioning things off regardless, with the level of shading and highlight that we get here. The added use of silver going all across her body also really helps at break the monotony of the consistent matte. Going up into her chest, it's ridiculously shapely and it's so form-fitting. This figure almost feels like an H figure. Why, with just the slightest change of coloration, this figure would get flagged on YouTube immediately. I love the lined roping that we get going in between her chest and up around her collar. The ropes and line work all over this figure really do a good job at giving off that Celtic vibe, as if her costume itself was molded by Celtic writing. Her back has a very well defined and beautiful curve and indentation for her spine. I really like this. It looks super nice as it cuts pointing down so neatly towards her behind. She has these lovely silver shoulder pads with Celtic designs on them as well, a little bit of a black motif, and they look well pinned going into the ropes around her arms. Her armpits are very well defined here, so rejoice those that love them armpits. Where it then goes into these sleeve-like pieces that have all sorts of different textures to them. There's a bunch of lovely indentations in the lighter purpley part, and then the darker one we have some nice shading, highlights, and more silver bolts. I don't know how the design to this figure goes, but I feel like this part of her arm that has these lines going across it, it would have been nice to see that texture perhaps down near the legs, maybe on the stomach, near the chest, so that way it feels a little more coherent. Her hands are very nicely sculpted, where even these gloves seem so form-fitting to her body, that's similar to the rest of her clothing. You can almost see her nails, along with her knuckles and every other detail. She's holding a spear, and not just any spear. This spear is called Gaybolg, and she gives it to Cuchulainn, who she trained. Wow, what a character. And this spear is beautiful. My goodness. I love how it's glossy. It really pops out while the figure's holding it. The use of the glossy red with a beautiful golden metallic highlight here or there is fantastic at making this thing seem regal, magical. However, you do have to be careful because the point on this thing is sharp enough that it could draw blood, or you could chip the tip of it. Her neck goes into the body tightly. It looks extremely flush, and I don't know if I like that, but the whole uniform is super tight, so I guess it kind of gets a pass. Her face is so beautiful and looks so much like the artwork from the game. The sculpt and angles are just phenomenal. Moving her around to look at the profile of her face, it still looks so nice. We get a tiny bit of gloss down at the lips, and some gloss for her eyeballs and not her eyelashes. Thank you for doing your homework, QuesQ. I appreciate it. The eye decals themselves look the way they're supposed to look based off of this character, so I have nothing really to say there. Her hair. Okay, looking at it from a front view, it's phenomenal. It looks beautiful. It's waving, strands interlacing all over the place. It's gorgeous. The coloration is really nice. Excellent shading, along with some nice highlights going all across it. It is very well done. The second you start to look at it from different angles of the figure is when things start to fall apart a little bit. You see all these different little cut-ins for the plastic here and there. They're extremely noticeable, and it's really not the best or the most hidden. Some of these lines are atrocious, especially that really deep cutout one in the back. They should have just carved it deeper all the way to the top of her head. They wouldn't have had this issue. However, because they wanted to have all these strands flowing all over the place and make it look so imposing from a front-on view, this works extremely well. So this is just a figure that when she's in your shelf, maybe not have a mirror behind her. It's not like she has that much going on in the back anyway because of the hair. Upon her release, she was going for 14,500 yen. That is okay. It's interesting to see that after all these years, when they came out with her second release, they didn't up the price, and at 14,500 yen during that release, I'd say if they fixed all the issues with her, she'd be really worth it. There are two other versions that QuesQ came out with for her, where one of them she's got a mask on and it's a little less expensive, but I think her face is so cute that I would go for the face one. I guess it depends. The little ninja look is kind of cool too. You also could have paid a little more, gotten the third Ascension form. However, sectioning Gaybold off into two separate weapons, I like the one giant staff. Turning it into two like Kali sticks is, not what I want from my Scathach. Now, for those of you that saw my thumbnail to today's episode, yeah, this figure, my goodness. Why, I don't even... It's terrible. I had mentioned at the beginning of this video talking about the base, how they use a malleable plastic down here. This is problem number one. This plastic needed to be incredibly solid on top of a really solid base with a longer metal pin in her leg to guarantee this beautiful, dynamic pose and not have her completely leaning and falling over every 2 seconds. This figure really leans hardcore. Right when I got her out of the package, she was fine. She looked exactly as you see her here. But over the years, month by month, I used this thin plastic piece, but by then it was way too late. When you're going to use something like this to try and hold your figure in place, it needs to be early on when there's not too much weight already leaned over. Much like Secret of Mana Reese over here. I did not take any chances with her. And after this thing bending so much that she, again, just looked like she was about to fall over and I wasn't going to chance having my figure break on me, I just built the piece out of Lego. I'm a big Lego person, I build tons of mocks all the time, so doing something like this was relatively easy and took seconds for me. I need to go this thick and this solid to be able to make sure that she doesn't fall over anymore. Ridiculous. I get that some of these figure companies really want to do some ambitious, epic-looking figures, but honestly, if you're not going to use the right kind of plastics, that's just terrible. I have a slew of figures over here that could have been an easy example of leaning problems, but these companies all did a decent job with it. Especially this one, after how awful her mother was online, and I would have bought in that figure in a heartbeat. I still think I'd grab her if I could find her at a decent price. I would just have to make my own pole for her to make sure she doesn't fall over. And obviously, Good Smile knew what they were doing when they came out with their Xenoblade stuff. It's just better to put one on here rather than take the risk. It's not worth taking the risk. I know a lot of you out there hate seeing this sort of thing, but I will take this and have a beautiful dynamic figure any day of the week over a figure that just falls over in your shelf consistently and then eventually will break on you. That aside, I really love the look of this figure, but you have so many Scathach options to choose from, it's ridiculous. They just keep coming out with more and more of them. She's a very beloved character, and so you could choose the one from Plumtree. I'm not particularly a fan of the way Plumtree did the face on her. It seems kind of wide for me. I do love this costume. I love the spear. I love the pose. This is a cool figure. It's just such a shame about the leaning, and in today's day and age, you don't know if you're getting one of the newer versions that might not lean at all, or the older ones. For any of you that have the newer one, if she does lean, could you please write so in the comment below? I'm actually really curious. If you end up biting the bullet and getting her just because you love this design as I do, be sure early on, right when you put her together, put a lovely peg in there as quickly as possible to make sure that she won't really do any major leaning over time. Hopefully this review today helped you decide which side of the fence you are on getting Scathach, and if you like my video just a little bit, it doesn't cost much to make me proud and hit that like. I've got a subscribe button, so why not give it a push? Give that notification bell a go. This way you'll be notified the next time I come out with a video. Have an amazing rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. Bye! I'm now going to remove this stand. Let's see how long it takes her to touch my finger. Not there yet. Here we go. All right, now it's on there pretty good. Oh, maybe the other side until it starts to draw blood? Ow, no. That's so dumb. Why would I do that? I guess to prove a point. I've got nothing against the limbo community. I actually think that professional limboers are very impressive. I just don't want my Scathach figure being a professional at it. That was a terrible joke, Eric.
You're my hero, Hermes. I'm gonna be just like you.
No, stop! It's too low! Your backbone can't take it!